couple of the biggest issues people have with public transportation in America are around the comfort that they have or the familiarity with being able to drive themselves, especially in the South. It seems like it's a car-based culture. Things are spread out, parking lots are big, and things are long distance from one place to the next. And so it's a cultural way of life.
Americans have this love affair with their car, and so they might use their car less. But I don't think a lot of people would just do away with their car.
We gauge our success by our absolute access to everything at any time, anywhere, any place. You know, the myth of the open road, the narrative of that is a very strong narrative informing the American psyche.
Car culture is strong and pervasive, but I think if you can give people reliable, affordable, easy to access means of rail or bus transportation, I do think people would move over.
In an area that grew up with the automobile, basically, there might be some, we have the stereotypes about the riders, and they're either low income or disabled. And obviously, we want to serve that segment of our society. But a lot of people might think, well, that's not for me.
The biggest issue in some people's minds are, oh, it's for the poor, it's for the downtrodden, it's for the bums, it's for the this, it's for the that, it's for the lesser people.
We would help that situation a great deal if we could increase our use of the buses in this area so that we'll have connectivity and frequency that typical middle-income commuters could make it to work and take away that kind of stigma.
If you go into DC, MTA in DC, you will see three-piece suits, two-piece suits. You will see businessmen, businesswomen relying on public transportation.
The negative externalities of cars are property damage, high rate of fatality, something 30-some thousand a year, motorist death, a lot of pollution, a lot of time spent in traffic congestion.
Congestion is crippling America. It costs American commuters approximately $115 billion a year because of wasted time and fuel. And those numbers continue to rise. 4.8 billion hours per year, Americans are stuck in traffic.
The average price to own a car per year is $10,000 to $12,000. Many households now have 2 to 4 cars. So it's very expensive. We buy a lot of unintended consequences with the car that actually could be dissipated if we chose other types of lifestyles.
Our nation's roads, highways, and bridges weren't equipped to handle current or future needs. The American Society of Civil Engineers reports that there are 69,000 structurally deficient bridges in this country.
We must take action to avoid the most devastating consequences of climate change.
42 cars on a road every day versus one bus on the road every day. Look at the impact that now has on the wear and tear on the road itself. Let's break it even all the way down to 42 sets of tires versus one set of tires and what the manufacturing process is for that. The consumption per mile is lower on the diesel buses. The cost of producing the diesel, which is a byproduct waste of gasoline, is much lower than the cost of producing the gasoline for those 40-some cars. Public transportation is environmentally a smarter choice, but then again, who listens? I can't tell you that I'm going to reduce X amount of carbon thingies out of the air, because when we look in the air, do you see any of the carbon thingies? It doesn't pull at us. But now when I start talking about, let's create a job, I've got 50-something people out here working 10 routes right now. It's just one of those things on a social economic scale where the more jobs we create, the more jobs will be created.
The robust infrastructure investment not only creates jobs, but promotes pro-business policies that sustain and produce economic growth.
Transit-oriented development is where you have these little hubs of activity around, say,
commercial and residential.
the train stations where you might work there, you've got a restaurant there, you might even have apartments there, where at these transit stops, you've got a little world there that's close and walkable. And there's an argument that if you put in good public transit, that will happen, that those transit stops will become popular commercial destinations.
We got a whole group of our workers that can't afford to own a car, or insure a car, or repair their car if it breaks down. So we need it for them. We've got a whole category of workers that have moved here from much larger cities that never had a car, and they don't want a car. And so from a worker perspective, it's a need. But from an employer perspective, it's also very important.
There are a lot of people that can't drive through various reasons. You know, they're either elderly or disabled, and so any kind of public transportation really helps their situation a great deal.
We've got to have that balance or that mix of modes of transportation.
No one would just say they're just against public transportation. When you come to city budgets and the city councils, and they're talking about funding, and you always have this big debate on the streets.
The most recent transportation bill passed by Congress spends a pathetically weak $52 billion a year on infrastructure.
Congress knows that we do need some public transportation growth and development. How much do they know? I don't know. I don't know how many of them are actually knee deep in public transportation issues.